Imagine this. You walk into a room with strangers, ready for the most important exam of your life. The stakes are high. The rules, brutally strict. Speak a word to the guard, you're out. Touch the paper the wrong way, you're out. Try to leave early, you're out. But here's the real twist. When you flip over your question paper, it's completely blank. No question, no clue, no instructions. And asking for help? That's also against the rules. So, what kind of exam is this? Is it a psychological trap, a test of intelligence, or something much darker? Welcome to the most twisted job interview ever, the exam. Let's dive in. The exam is held at a billionaire-owned company. 8 candidates are selected to take part. They're taken into a locked room where there are 8 desks. Each desk has a paper and a pencil placed neatly on it. The only thing written on the paper is the candidate's number. Each person picks a desk and sits down. Soon, a guard carrying a weapon and the exam invigilator enter the room. The invigilator begins explaining the rules clearly to everyone. There is only one question in this exam, and it has only one answer. But before you attempt it, listen carefully to these rules. If anyone speaks to me or the guard, whether by choice or accident, you'll be disqualified. If you damage or spoil the paper in any way, you'll be disqualified. If you try to leave the room before the exam is over, you'll be disqualified. After laying down the rules, the invigilator looks around the room and asks, "Any questions?" No one says a word. Seeing everyone stay silent, the invigilator walks over to the stopwatch placed in the room. He announces, "You have exactly 80 minutes. These 80 minutes will decide the next 80 years of your life." Then he starts the stopwatch, wishes them good luck, and walks out of the room. As soon as he leaves, the candidates turn over their papers, only to find that they're completely blank. No question, just their candidate number at the top. Everyone starts to get confused. 3 minutes go by. One girl, unable to handle the tension, starts writing on her paper, "I believe I am qualified for this job." But the entire room is under surveillance. The invigilator sees her through the CCTV. Moments later, the guard walks in, grabs her by the arm, and drags her out. She is disqualified. Why? Because the rules clearly stated that damaging the answer paper in any way, intentionally or not, would lead to disqualification. And writing on a blank sheet without knowing the question was considered damaging it. Seeing this happen, the remaining candidates become extremely cautious. They stay completely silent, still, and alert. Among them is a particularly sharp-minded candidate. He starts analyzing the rules carefully in his head, and he realizes something. They were told not to speak to the guard or the invigilator, but there was no rule saying they couldn't talk to each other. So, taking a small risk, he begins whispering to the person beside him. Then he speaks a bit louder. No reaction from the guard. He looks directly at the guard. Still nothing. The guard just stands there silently. That gives him confidence. Soon, the others start talking among themselves too. Now that they're sharing ideas, they realize something important. Maybe the task isn't about finding the answer. Maybe the real challenge is figuring out what the question in the first place. They agree to help each other for now and find the hidden question. Once they do, everyone will write their own answer individually, without help. Someone suggests this exam might be designed to test teamwork. After all, in any good company, success depends on observation, cooperation, and sharing ideas. Everyone agrees. It makes sense. Maybe this strange test was designed just for that purpose. To work better as a team, they decide not to use their real names. Instead, they assign nicknames based on appearance: black, white, brown, blonde, for the golden-haired one, brunette, dark, and the quietest one, who hasn't said a single word. They call him deaf. It's White who comes up with all the names, dark objects to the names, saying they sound racist. But everyone else chooses to focus on the goal rather than the names, so they move on. White starts thinking again. What else isn't forbidden? He slowly pushes back his chair and stands up. Then he looks straight at the guard. Still no reaction. So White begins walking around the room, saying to the others, "This means we're allowed to move. We can even go up to each other." Knowing this gives them a new direction. Now they start thinking of the next step. That's when Brunette speaks up. "Maybe something is written on the paper, but we just can't see it with our normal eyes." One of the girls suggests, "What if we take the papers closer to the light? Maybe then something will appear." Everyone agrees and moves their sheets toward the room lights, but nothing appears. The papers are still blank. That's when Blonde comes up with another idea. Maybe the pencils weren't given to right answers. What if we use the pencil to rub the paper gently? Like when you place a coin under a paper and rub a pencil over it, the coin's shape shows through. White finds the idea interesting and tells Blonde to try it. But Black immediately stops her and warns, "Don't forget the rules. If we damage the answer sheet, we're out." Just like that first girl. After 2 failed attempts, Black suddenly gets an idea. We can see visible light, sure, but there are types of light we can't see, like X-rays, infrared, or ultraviolet rays. What if the question is written in invisible ink? Under special light, maybe it'll show up. They start scanning the room and notice there are emergency lights installed. So they think, if we turn off the regular lights, maybe the emergency ones will turn on automatically. But there's a problem. There's no light switch inside the room, and stepping outside is against the rules. So they take a risk. They start breaking the lights using the legs of chairs. One by one, they smash every light in the room. Finally, the emergency lights switch on. Black gets excited and says, "These look like UV lights, kind of blackish in color. Credit card companies use lights like these to check hidden security symbols. So maybe now, any hidden writing on the paper will appear." With hope in their hearts, they hold the papers under the emergency lights. But nothing changes. The pages are still blank. While examining the lights, Dark suddenly speaks up. There's another layer inside these bulbs. Hearing this, Black breaks one of the lights carefully and pulls out a red-tinted lens from inside. "This might be infrared," he says. Historians used infrared rays to create reflectograms to uncover hidden paintings. Again, filled with hope, they carefully break more lights using the heels of the girl's shoes. Finally, the infrared lights power on, but once again, nothing. No words appear on the papers. Their light theory has completely failed. Frustrated, they begin thinking of something new. The rule says nothing about damaging someone else's answer sheet. He rushes toward the desk where the first girl was sitting, the one who got disqualified earlier. Her paper is still there. White, remembering Blonde's idea, starts rubbing the paper with a pencil. Still nothing. Then another idea hits him. They've tried light. They've tried pencil graphite. What if the paper reacts to liquid? White tears the sheet into several small pieces. He gives one piece to Black and asks him to lick it to see if anything changes. Then he takes another piece, walks to a corner of the room, and urinates on it to check if that works. But again, nothing. 0 results. The candidates are now visibly frustrated and hopeless. At that moment, Def, who had remained completely silent all this time, finally speaks. He starts crying and mutters in broken French, "Look at yourself. It's showing you. Only you." His philosophical tone confuses everyone. No one understands what he's saying. Some candidates even get irritated and ask him to shut up. Breaking the silence after a long time, Brown suddenly says, "Everyone's throwing out theories. Now let me share mine. I don't think this is an exam at all. This is a game. Think about it. This whole setup feels too staged. And look at us. We're 8 people, 4 men, 4 women, all from different cultures and backgrounds. I think people on the other side are watching us. Maybe they're betting on us. Our ideas, our reactions, maybe it's all a part of their entertainment." Hearing Brown's theory, Dark immediately disagrees. "Mr. Brown, you sound like a gambler. That's exactly how gamblers think." Dark accuses him of being a hardcore gambler, and that's why he's imagining people are betting on them. A bit of tension rises in the room, and the two begin arguing. Dark firmly says, "No one is betting on us. We're not here as entertainment. We're here because we're special. That's why we've been selected. Whoever is behind that screen, if anyone is, must be the CEO of this company." Brown asks, surprised, "How do you know so much about the CEO?" Dark responds, "You really think we all came here without knowing anything? This offer was too tempting to ignore, but someone must have done their homework before showing up." Hearing that, the others jump in. They explain that this company is one of the top ranked in the world. Even the minimum salary and benefits offered here are more than what high-class jobs offer elsewhere. That's why they all applied, even without knowing much about the company. It was simply too good of an opportunity to pass up. But clearly, Dark knows a lot more than the rest. Curious, they ask him to explain further. Dark begins. "About a decade ago, a strange disease began spreading. Young people were dying. no one knew how to stop it. That's when a company stepped in. They released an antidote, a breakthrough cure, and within 6 months, the death rate was cut in half. This company quickly rose to power in the medical world. Its annual sales reached $20 billion, and its market value skyrocketed to deep $60 billion. If this company were a country, it would be the 8th largest economy in the world. And next year, it's expected to move up to 6th place. And this is that company. They had announced that they'd stopped all new research, but maybe they had already discovered a cure for a new disease. That could be why they suddenly needed a new secretary. And that's why all the candidates were brought here today, because this is how the CEO hires his personal secretary. He always stays behind the scenes. While discussing the company and the CEO, half an hour went by without anyone realizing. So they all got busy again, trying to come up with new ideas. At this moment, Brunette had an idea. She quietly walked over to the guard, the one who had been standing like a statue near the door the whole time. She reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. The guard didn't say anything because technically, she hadn't broken any of the observer's rules. Brunette pointed to the fire emergency sensor on the ceiling and said, "What if we light a fire to trigger the alarm? Maybe some liquid will fall out of it. And if that liquid touches the paper, maybe some hidden text will appear. Like how old photo albums used to be developed." Hearing this, Black got excited. He said, "Let's do it." Brunette stood on a chair and held the lighter under the fire sensor, but she couldn't reach it. So White rolled up a piece of paper and handed it to her. What Brunette didn't know was that the paper White had given her was her own exam paper. White had done it deliberately to get her disqualified. Brunette unknowingly lit her own paper on fire and held it up to the sensor. Some liquid finally started to drip. Black held his paper under the dripping liquid. It got soaked, but still, nothing appeared. The liquid was just normal water, so they failed again. Brunette got down and panicked when she didn't see her paper. She asked, "Where's my paper?" But by then, it was too late. The guard had realized she had burned her paper, which was strictly against the rules. He dragged her out of the room. After this, Black got furious at White. He stormed toward him and shouted, "I should punch your lights out!" And at that exact moment, all the lights went out. Brown immediately said, "Lights on," and the lights came back. He laughed and said, "This room has voice recognition." Before they could process this, they heard Def sobbing from her desk again. White was completely fed up with her. He convinced Def to destroy her paper. He said it would make things easier. Through her tears, Def slowly tore up her paper. The guard came in and took her out of the room. While leaving, she accidentally dropped her glasses inside. Seeing all this, everyone got angrier with White. They'd had enough of his selfish behavior. Black was especially furious. In the heat of the argument, Black punched White, knocking him unconscious. To prevent White from harming anyone else, Black, with Brown's help, tied him to a chair using shoelaces and a tie. Black wanted to drag White out of the room so that he would be disqualified, but Blonde warned him, "If you try to take him out, you'll be disqualified too. That's the rule." Hearing this, Black changed his plan. He took a paper, put it under White's hand, placed a pencil in White's hand, and tried to make him ruin the paper, hoping he'd get disqualified that way. But White had already regained consciousness. He dropped the pencil. He was trying to say something, but Black slapped him hard. Dark tried to untie the cloth around White's mouth, but Black stopped her. Still, Dark managed to free White's mouth. White gasped and cried, "I need to take a tablet every hour. If I don't, I'll die. It's in my left pocket. Please, help me." But no one believed him. They thought it was another act. Then White said, "I know what the question is. Give me the tablet, and I'll tell you." Even then, no one believed him. Suddenly, White passed out again. Dark began to suspect that White was actually a plant, someone sent by the company. Maybe this was all a strategy. Create distrust, create chaos, and White was the puppet. But Brown had a different theory. He thought Dark was the company insider. After all, Dark knew too much, way more than the others. Brown suddenly removed his belt and tied Dark to the chair. He warned her, "If you're innocent, we'll let you go. Otherwise, torture begins." Dark insisted, "I don't know anything." Brown held up a paper, ready to use it like a blade. He had military training. He knew how to turn even paper into a weapon. First, he slashed his own finger to show he wasn't bluffing. Then, he warned Dark and asked again, "What's the question?" Dark, now terrified, confessed, "Yes, I did work for the company, but I wasn't sent here. I applied like everyone else. But Brown didn't believe her. He slashed her leg with the paper, cutting deep. Dark screamed in pain. Black couldn't take it anymore. He tried to stop Brown, but Brown punched him hard. Then Brown tried to harm Dark further. He took off her glasses, held her face, and brought the sharp paper toward her eye. Still, even through the terror, Dark stuck to her words. I don't know the question. Finally, Brown stopped. He realized she was telling the truth. He let go. Blonde rushed forward and untied Dark. Meanwhile, White's body started shaking. He was having a seizure. Black suddenly believed him. He recognized the symptoms. His own wife had died from this disease. He carried the same condition. Black said, if we don't give him that pill now, he'll die. Everyone looked for the pill, searched each other's pockets, but couldn't find it. Then Dark suspected Brown. She searched his desk, and under the table, she found a piece of chewed gum stuck beneath. Inside it was the tablet. Brown had hidden it there. Dark ran to White, ready to give it to him, but Brown stopped her. He wanted White to die, to reduce the competition, but the others couldn't support that level of cruelty anymore. Black also steps forward to give the tablet, but just as Dark is about to feed it to White, Brown knocks it from his hand. The tablet falls into the room's water exit hole. They can't quite reach it. Meanwhile, White's condition worsens. His nose starts bleeding. Dark can't take it anymore. He shouts for help from outside the room, but that breaks the rule. As a result, guards grab Dark and take him out of the room. He is disqualified. Blonde, using her hair clip, carefully retrieves the tablet and quickly gives it to White. Within a few moments, White recovers significantly. They also untie him. Regaining his senses, White becomes curious because there are only 10 minutes left on the clock. Only 4 candidates remain. The game now gets really intense. White is reminded that he promised he would reveal the question once he received the medicine. He was given the tablet, so now he should reveal the question. White steps forward and calmly says, there is no question in this test, not in the way we were looking for one. This exam itself is the question, and we are the answers. Only one answer will remain at the end. That person gets the job. After finishing, White looks toward the guard's gun. He slowly starts to approach it. Realizing the danger, Black rushes and grabs the gun first, pointing it at White. But White knows Black won't shoot. He's only holding the gun in self-defense. So White tries to manipulate him, slowly walking toward him. Forced into a corner, Black pulls the trigger. Nothing happens. The gun is empty. Seizing the opportunity, White shoves Black to the ground. A fight breaks out. White grabs a pencil and strikes Black, knocking him out. Brown tries to stop White, but White stabs him too. Standing up, White lifts the gun again, points it at them, and fires. But again, no bullets. He realizes the gun is fingerprint locked. Only the guard can fire it. So White runs over to the guard, uses his hand to activate the gun, and turns back to aim at everyone. Brown calmly asks, "What do you want?" White replies coldly, "I want to be alone in this room. The rest of you, leave. Disqualify yourselves." Brown silently exits. White then points the gun at Black, telling him to get out. But Black doesn't want to leave. At that moment, Blonde speaks up. She says she's leaving. She doesn't want to be part of this madness. But just before exiting, Blonde loudly says, "Lights off!" Suddenly, the room goes dark. White, thinking Black might attack him, blindly fires shots in the dark. Then he says, "Lights on." The lights turn back on, and there, Black lies on the floor, shot in the chest. White then turns to the door, sees that Blonde is still in the room. She never actually left, but he doesn't have to do anything to her. The stopwatch hits 80 minutes. An alarm buzzes. White walks up to the black screen, shouting, "I did everything to survive. That means I'm the right candidate." The guard comes in, places a hand on his shoulder, and shows him the time on his wristwatch. It says, "The full 80 minutes have not yet passed." White is shocked. He looks at the room's stopwatch, notices there are 2 buttons, one red, one blue. He presses the blue button, realizes it was speeding up the timer. The red one runs the timer in real time, and then it all clicks. While they were busy searching for the question, Def had sneakily walked up and pressed the blue button, speeding up the countdown. But it's too late now. White had already spoken to the guard, breaking the very first rule of the exam. And so, despite everything, White is disqualified. In despair, White tries to shoot himself in the head, but nothing comes out of the gun. Suddenly, the black screen lights up. The examiner appears. Guards escort White out of the room. Back inside, Blonde notices Def's abandoned glasses. She picks them up, holds the glass piece over the paper, and places the glasses on top of it. Through that lens, she sees a single word written, no. It's the costing number 1 sheet. That's all that was on it. Nothing else. Blonde starts replaying the entire exam in her mind, from the very start. The guard's instructions. Everything. She finally understands. The real question was hidden in plain sight. At the beginning, when the examiner asked any questions. That was it. The question was the phrase itself. The correct answer was no. Just then, Def walks back into the room, revealed to be the CEO of the company. The examiner follows behind him. Blonde walks up to Def, returns his glasses, and hands over the answer sheet. There's still a few seconds left on the 80-minute timer. With 1 second remaining, Blonde calmly says, no, the correct answer. She passes. Blonde says she doesn't want the job. She points to Black and says, how can I take a job that costs someone their life? The examiner smiles and says, who said he died? Blonde rushes to Black and finds him still alive. The examiner explains, in their research on disease, they discovered a magic bullet, a single tablet that regenerates damaged cells. It can destroy viruses and sick cells, reviving people from near death. It's extremely rare. They can't make many. That's why they need an administrator who can make tough decisions, someone who notices small details and still has empathy for people. Blonde is perfect for the role. Black regains consciousness. Blonde smiles and finally accepts the job, shaking the CEO's hand. And so, the exam with no written question finally comes to a close.